Author opinion of Dennis Keen at the history, geography and architecture, culture and life manners of Kazakhs in the program Discovering Kazakhstan.
Salam, привет, and hello. I'm Dennis Keen, and today on Discovering Kazakhstan, we will be discovering this country's gleaming new capital, Astana. Astana is unusual for Kazakh cities because it is split in two. On what locals call the right bank of the river Asil is the old city, dating back to the 19th century. On the other side, on the left bank, is a sparkling new city of modern skyscrapers, built after this place became the capital of Kazakhstan in 1997. Come along with us today as we explore this intriguing city, both old and new. No matter what side of the river bank you're on, Astana has this kind of contagious, youthful energy, especially in the warm summer months when families come out to stroll along the riverbank. And this summer has something special because the World's Fair, Expo 2017, has come to this city for the first time. To show us around the city, we're meeting a volunteer from Expo, Aygurim.
Nice to meet you, Dennis.
Hi, Aygurim. Nice to see you too. So you're volunteering for Expo, and a lot of people are going to this amazing facility that they've built for this event. But I want these people to know that outside of those grounds, there's a whole urban space that is waiting for them to explore.
That's totally true. I've lived here for 2 years already, and I thought that I knew the city, but every year, even each month, I have something new that I know. Like my friends tell me, someone else tell me, I read somewhere, and there are a lot of places to explore. So.
It's a city, especially the new part, that is only 20 years old, and every single month brings something new. So I think if we go for a walk and try to explore the place, we're going to discover something together. A lot of visitors coming to the Expo in Astana may get the impression that this city is brand new, but the settlement was actually established as far back as 1830 by the Russian Imperial Border Guards known as Cossacks. For more than 100 years, the city was known as Akhmolinsk. If you stroll the old right bank of the capital, you can find fascinating remnants of this chapter in history.
This is one of the oldest buildings here in Astana. It was built around the beginning of 20th century.
The beginning of the 20th century, that's more than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That means like even before Kazakhstan was part of the Soviet Union, back during the Russian Empire.
You're exactly right. So this building belonged to a family of Kubrins who owned a chain of shops here. And they were famous. So they were kind of entrepreneurs. They built up their own business in this area. Yeah. And it's funny that they were in the kind of grocery business because now this is still a grocery store, like, yeah,
you know, more than 100 years
right.
later. I actually heard that it's a one-of-a-kind place because on the inside you can see some exhibits about the history of Akmola. Well, I think, Aygurim, you'll never find another educational experience like this. Rows of sausage with historical photos up on the walls. This is a special supermarket.
Yeah, so these photos are not just photos of people, but they are founders of the city. They are famous traders. And most of the buildings that they've built, that they've constructed, they are still working now, and we are in one of them.
So not a lot of people know that, right? Because most people who come to Astana, whether it's for Expo or otherwise, they see the new side of the city.
Yeah,
right?
they think that is the Astana, but actually here we are. This is the history of Astana, so welcome then.
And Astana actually is a new name. Astana just means capital in Kazakh, right?
That's true.
And it only received this name in 1997. For most of the history of the city, it was Akhmola or Akhmolinsk.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's in a place like this, an unexpected place like a supermarket, that you can really tap into that ancient history.
Do grocery shopping.
And do your grocery shopping. As you shop for your groceries, you're watched over by some of the most famous citizens of the former city of Akhmolinsk, the so-called kuptsi, or merchants. These master capitalists built grand buildings that are now highly prized in Astana, used as embassies and government headquarters. Though Astana is a dream for people who love modern architecture,
Yeah.
personally, I'm actually a big fan of this super old-fashioned stuff. Whatever you can make with wood or brick and with this kind of beautiful details.
Yeah.
So it's fun to look up along the walls at all these murals that they've made
Yeah,
of
yeah,
kind of classic Akmola architecture.
Yeah, and this is the building that we're actually in right now. So doesn't it look different?
Right? I mean, without all the fancy cars and the advertisements and the people on the street, I mean, you can imagine this simpler time back in the 19th century before the city boomed and bloomed into what it is now.
Just down the street from Corbin's shop, you can see another beautiful building which belonged to Moishe, if I'm not mistaken.
And this looks just as old as that other one, right? Somewhere around the early 1900s.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Around 1919, 1980.
It's so cool. I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for the modern, innovative architecture of Astana. The big pyramids and giant tents and glass globes. But this, to me, is equally cool. Because, you know, looking at this, you could imagine yourself on the campus of Harvard or Cambridge or something.
You're exactly right.
Or in some kind of, like, ghost story. It's got this atmosphere of history.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, for me, it's something old, ancient, and history, in Russian maybe English, and like, it brings me some feeling of that.
It's got a different flavor than what you would expect, and we can see this on every street corner around here. Just walking around this right bank of the city brings constant surprises.
Yeah.
One thing that surprised me, certainly, was that a street fair has suddenly popped up at the edge of the old city, near the Eso River. Inspired by a famous pedestrian street in Russia, the new Astana Arbat has taken what was once a simple sidewalk and turned it into an inspiring new place to meet artists and craftspeople.
Dennis, do you know that in Moscow there is this street which is called Arbat?
Okay.
And in Almaty there is a street which is also called Arbat.
I've been to the Almaty Arbat because it's down the street from my house.
Oh yeah, that's cool then. I've been there too.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Arbat, which was opened in Astana recently. So this is the place where the craftsmen, workers gather together, and artists and musicians to show their talents, to maybe to show their works to the common audience, because like normally, usually people don't see all that stuff, and like you get really surprised that there are a lot of such talented people here living in Kazakhstan, Astana.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, I mean, so much of this art is usually kind of hidden away in a gallery or a museum, but this is kind of like an open air gallery. So all along here, I mean, really amazing art for affordable prices too, for those who are visiting Kazakhstan. On this side, they set up these kind of half yurts, where craftspeople from all over Kazakhstan have showed up here, right?
Yes, that's like the very traditional earrings and then rings and all that stuff. I really like it personally because I feel that it really brings my real Kazakh spirit out of me, and that's why I enjoy being here and coming here.
You should be proud to have that kind of crafts. So we've got craft people, we've got painters, we also have some musicians. So here they've got street musicians who are coming to jam. Maybe we can play with them a little bit.
Yeah, I guess you have to try.
Yeah.
Too much. Nobody on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead.
Woo!
Hey, nice.
Yeah, good
job.
Well, let's see. Actually, I'm terrible singer, so like,
me too, but
singing right now with them is quite fun.
But this is this kind of like democratic atmosphere where even if you're not a great singer, even if you're not a great guitar player, and these guys are, you can come here, you can have fun, you can play music.
Yeah,
nobody's going to judge you. Nursultan and I are going to dedicate a song to our new band member here.
Your new friend.
Our new friend. So let's see what we can do, yeah? Okay, you start.
Got a feeling that I'm going under, but I know that I'll make it out alive if I keep calling you my lover. Move on. You watch me breathe till I can breathe. I'm shaking, falling down on my knees. Now that I made out your kisses, I've been needing stitches. Giving up on myself, I'm making that.
One amazing little corner of the new Astana Autobot is this little yurt where they've set up an authentic Kazakh loom. And you can see strung all along here is this colored yarn. And now Aygrim is being shown how to make a kind of Kazakh textile. They're making these kind of long scarf-like objects that are actually used to wrap around a yurt or to somehow decorate the inside of a yurt, the traditional Kazakh home. And so it's actually not as easy as you might think. There's only 2-3 colors here, but she has to keep that same pattern going up and down the entire textile. Now, and there's traditional patterns that she's using, that she's putting into this work. So the woman here told us that the ornament that they're using is called koshkormuz. We can see the same kind of ornament here. Here, it's those kind of ram's horns that we see over and over again. What I think is so cool is that this kind of knowledge has just been passed down orally from generation to generation. Back in the day, there were no textbooks in weaving or textiles. It was just one grandmother teaching her granddaughter generation after generation. And through all those centuries, through all that Kazakh history, they've been able to maintain this beautiful craft. How do you think she remembers all of this?
I don't know, maybe years of practice only.
It's insane. Row by row, she's telling her, go under this one, go over these 2 ones.
Yeah, it's hard to do that. It's hard to manage that. I mean, I appreciate all the effort that my grannies, can I call her granny maybe?
You could.
Granny puts in that to do all that stuff. I think that it's the years of practice just like that helps her to remember all that stuff. I think the new generation should learn something like that because it's tradition.
Yeah, and with all these gadgets and social media and stuff, too many distractions in the world,
Yeah.
it's actually really healthy to sit down, just focus on one thing.
I guess my eyesight much better through like doing all that stuff for a few minutes even that.
Now, next to our amazing granny and her loom, we have a talented potter named Jibek, who said he'll give me a short little lesson in Kazakh pottery.
You pour some water in that again.
Orayımız,
Put that on your fingers.
orayımız. Bugün sosaklı aslında ıslarımızı da kesemiz.
And you hold that with your thumb and like, you cut it.
Is she gonna do it or am I gonna do it?
This is all sisters.
Öz değil mi?
He wants you to do
Jackson,
that.
it was in steaming.
Yeah.
This is the moment of truth. We have to separate the cup from the wheel itself without totally ruining it.
You have
with this
to
one.
pointing fingers, yeah. Now hold that with your tongue.
Yeni buraya.
Like this. Okay, like this. Oh no.
I believe in you.
Oh!
Yeah.
Free? Is it free? Can we take it off?
Boğulma. Kötüsü boğulma.
Kız.
Okay, we gotta wait. We don't want to hurry.
Do it like this.
Tutuyamız kolda.
Okay. Scraping off some of our mud.
Ablayalımız. Ablay. Bak. Bu değil.
Okay, so I gotta put my fingers
Like this.
like this.
Ne ablayı yıkıyor?
Like scissors. Yeah, like scissors.
Okay.
No.
Ya alırsın alırsın.
Okay. Oh my god. Take that. Put that over there.
And then it all just falls apart right away. No, it's holding up. And you know, it's got a little bit of a quirk to it. It's not perfect,
Yeah.
but it's ours.
Are you proud?
I'm proud. We did it
We're very
together.
proud.
Good job. Like that? here we have the kind of world of felt,
Yeah.
which is really that magical nomad material.
It's the first time me seeing such a bright colors. Like usually they're like some classical ones, white, brown, or black.
Right.
Yeah, so seeing pink, yellow, it's the first time for me, I guess.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the reason why is because they're using artificial dyes. Whereas, like traditionally, Kazakhs would use whatever they can get in the natural world. So they're probably taking some like roots and grinding it up, taking some plants and grinding it up to make some kind of very subtle colors. But here, I mean, that is pretty cool to see bright, hot pink felt carpet here.
Can you imagine that being in the yurt, in like in such kind of traditional yurt? It's gonna be strange.
That'd be like a girly girl's yurt. Have hot pink up on the walls. So they have little kind of, I don't know what these are for. These are...
In Kazakh they call it kurpie.
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 Yeah, so kurpie is your kind of like seat cover, or sometimes a little mattress that you can put under yourself to sit on the ground. My eye was really drawn to these guys because we have...
Do you like them, really?
Well, it's just kind of interesting because it's like a vase, but
Yeah.
you're surely not going to put any flowers in there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a bad idea to put something in that, like water, kumquat, or whatever you want.
No, so it serves more as like a beautiful decorative function,
Yeah.
right? To have
So-
that there. And it's
It looks pretty.
very, very interesting
Yeah.
work they're doing here.
I guess it's hard to do that.
It's not easy, it takes a lot of time. We actually did it once on Discovering Kazakhstan. I could say firsthand.
Actually, I have a good story about camels.
Okay.
My parents, they both believe that camels bring like the fortune to you. And like the very first present that I remember, that I can remember like from my childhood, is small camel, like just like that.
Like this guy.
Yeah, just like that. And that they gave me, saying that always hold that next to you, like have it. And every time when we go somewhere, whether it's within Kazakhstan or abroad, like every time my parents say, look for camel, look for camel. You have to find a camel. So I have like some camels coming from abroad and like, I'm going to collect them one day.
So you have a whole camel family at home.
Yeah, I guess so. One of them is pretty old, like Atashka.
The old grandpa camel.
Yeah, grandpa.
He's the oldest one in the family. Well, these are super cute, and I know for sure that these are very popular souvenirs with foreigners.
Yeah.
Because, well, we don't have camels where I come from. And it's so cute how it's done, and it's all handmade, right?
Yeah.
Out of felt, some
So
kind
soft.
of fuzzy hair there.
But this one is like pretty, I don't know how to.
This could even be a kind of paperweight, you know, to keep your papers from flying away.
Oh,
when you're working
yeah.
outside.
It's really like the good thing in having an Astana. It's really windy here, so like you probably want to keep that in your office.
You need something like this. Over here, we have something a little bit manlier, because this is a Kazakh hunting dog.
Yeah, but actually I have never seen them in real life. I just heard of them and I saw the pictures of them and like in the museums and all that stuff, and seeing them, oh my god, they're here. It's really...
It's unique, right? Because
unique,
they are really quite rare, but this is a special breed called a Tazi. And you can see that even the Tazi is wearing a triangular tumor charm on there. But a Tazi himself would keep a man safe because he's going out hunting, and these Tazi can hunt wolves even.
Oh,
I mean, it looks like a small, cute little dog, but it is fierce and vicious, and it is fast.
Yeah, you couldn't be tricked by the appearance. Yeah, you have to be careful with that.
Appearances can be deceiving. So I like that felt little Tazi that they made. I also see that here they have, look at this.
Granny, Ajé.
Cute little granny, what in Kazakh you say Ajé.
Yeah.
Ajé with her little grandkid there. I think it's really special that they're using a traditional material like felt to make some kind of creative, almost innovative kind of toy here.
I really like those one. Like, you see how beautiful they are. They're simple at the same time. They're like, I believe it's really hard to do that. And also like, they have the traditional like Kazakh earring, and they call it like, not earring, ring.
Right.
Besblizik. And this is like prototype of that. They have like also.
So show what you have here. So it's where you have a ring, and you've got a bracelet.
Yeah, and it's connected together.
It looks really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you look close up at these rings too, you're right, they're super detailed, because in there you have these very, very small beads of silver. And think about what kind of concentration it takes for the master to go in there and lay it down in bead by bead on there.
One by one.
You also see that there's a kind of motif here that you have lots of these triangles. See that? Triangles there, and even look, all around here you're going to see the same shape, that triangle shape. And whenever you have this Kazakh charm or tumor, you always see that same symbol, right?
Yeah.
And what I heard is that actually it's because it's this kind of sharp shape, it'll scare away the evil eye. It'll scare away any kind of like bad demons.
Yeah.
So a lot of this here is to kind of protect a young girl.
Yeah, over this.
Like look at this kind of thing, right? So this is one that you could wear. And what do you think you could put inside there? You put inside some kind of note with a prayer, some kind of scripture in there, and that would keep you safe.
Do you want to have that? you can
I don't think
try.
I can pull this off. So she's playing this instrument that in English we call a juice harp.
Juice
harp? Yeah. And she's really good because I've tried to play this thing. You put these two metal bars kind of on your mouth, your teeth, and you flick it. And then you use the kind of inner cavity of your mouth to make that sound. Look at her go.
That's hard. Dennis, I've showed you the old city, you've seen our bot, and we've seen some old buildings, and now I want to show you the new one.
Now, to get to the new city in Astana just means crossing the river. We have this beautiful Esol River here, and there's several bridges that you can cross.
And
this one is called Serüven, right?
Yes, it means walking, what we are doing just right now.
I love it, very descriptive. It's the strolling bridge, and you can see that the entire city of Astana is out here having a nice evening stroll. From the Serüven Bridge, you can stroll right into the city's central park and onward into the glass and steel oasis that is the new city of Astana. Old merchants' homes feel a world away in this wonderland of modern architecture. Yes, I'm so glad we finally found this building. This is a structure that actually people all around the world were talking about because it's the world's largest tent.
Yeah, you're right. Built by Norman Foster, this is the local greatest mall called Han Şatır.
And Han Şatır means something like the Khan's tent.
Yeah, you're right. And this building is one of the main features here in Astana, so I'm glad that you see it.
The other reason why this building has become such an international sensation is that it has a beach inside.
Yes, it has. And it's quite unique because during the winter time here in Astana, it's almost impossible to find some place to have a tan or have to swim a little bit. But here in Han Şatır, it's possible.
Can you really get a tan in there?
I'm not sure, I haven't tried yet, but I'm sure that I'm gonna do it.
But you can at least pretend you're sitting on the beach in a tropical weather while there's a blizzard outside. It's really an innovation that's made for such a severe climate as there is in Astana. But obviously the building itself is quite unusual, made out of this special material that's been stretched out into this tent-like form. And it really anchors the city, because from here all the way running through this central part of Astana is this main boulevard, right?
This is called Nurjol Boulevard. Astana is one of the youngest cities here in Kazakhstan, and each year there are different installations that are prepared by different artists, and you can see one of them right here.
This is amazing. There's all these little humans. At first I thought they were pregnant, but no, they're holding the planet Earth, because this is showing that we all care for the planet no matter where we're from. And here I think we have statues from almost every country in the world.
Japan.
Here we've got Japan.
Brazil.
Here we've got the toucan on Brazil. An island as small as Haiti in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Everybody has a voice here, has some kind of statue representing them. Here. The Republic of Guinea.
Yeah.
Some countries not so well known, others pretty famous. Of course, leading the way is our dear Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Here so what can we see here?
Akorda.
That's the presidential palace.
Yes. Then Bayterek.
We can go see that a little bit later.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
We got the map of Kazakhstan. We got the president's hand right there.
Which is actually which we can see this one here in Bayterek in the higher position, in the higher floor.
Okay, so you're gonna have to tell me about that a little bit later. This looks like the sun.
Shield.
Shield.
I think it's shield.
Okay, Kazakh shield.
Yeah, Kazakh shield for the warriors. Here we can see.
Okay, come around this side and we can see what's here on the back. some Kazakh instruments,
Yeah.
famous dombra and kobuz, some petroglyphs, and some camels showing that ancient history of Kazakhstan, of the Silk Road, and of people who lived here centuries past. Kazakhstan's most famous poet,
Yeah,
Abay Konanbayev.
Yeah, here we see pyramid and those buildings over there.
It's kind of funny to see them all right here, because we were just looking at that one. That's Khan Shatyr,
Khan
the shopping mall with the beach in it, and the pyramid that's called the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation. So it's really a nice overview of Astana, of Kazakhstan, of everything that makes this place special.
I think you can come here and check everything here and then like, I'm going
give
here.
him a hug.
Oh, you're so kind. I'm going to.
Well, this monument is one that everybody in Kazakhstan knows. You'll find little versions of this in villages throughout the country.
In the cities too.
It's become a kind of symbol of Kazakhstan itself. It's Bayterek.
Bayterek, as Eiffel Tower in Paris, Bayterek in Kazakhstan, in Astana. So
And there's actually a kind of a story behind Bayterek. It was apparently actually designed by your president himself. And he is quite a well-read man. He knows about this Kazakh myth
Samruk.
that tells the story of Samruk, a famous bird who laid a golden egg atop a tree. So here we have the egg in the tree. Here you can actually go to the top of the monument itself. You can go inside the egg.
And you can see the president's hand in that, and you can put a hand there. And there is a legend that if you put your hand there and make a wish, this wish come true. I've tried that one and it worked. It worked.
It worked.
Once. I tried it once and it worked. Yeah.
You wish that you would be on Discovering Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And now you're here. See, wishes come true. About 4 kilometers from the modern city's main axis of Nurly-Joly, a whole new neighborhood has arisen around the festival grounds of Expo 2017. A modern-day World's Fair, this event is running all summer and features dozens of national pavilions showcasing green energy solutions from around the world. The creation of the Expo Center has created a whole new center of gravity in Astana, with surprising new structures out on the steppe.
This is the newest neighborhood here in Astana, and when I moved here for the first time, nothing was there, and it was built in these 2 years. And you can see Astana Ballet Theater, which is actually the ballet theater. Yeah, exactly right. It's the house of Astana Ballet. It's really amazing that they developed this capital culturally. It's good that in Astana here I have a chance to visit Astana Ballet Theater or Opera House to see both, to develop culturally. And you can see that ballet, amazing moves. I can be very feminine and all that stuff.
When you moved here 2 years ago and you were at the university nearby, this was just open steppe. I remember when I came for a visit back then, there was nothing here at all, just tumbleweeds and dust. And now there's professional artists here doing pirouettes. It's amazing just how the city has progressed.
I like that very much here in Astana because all the time you can see something new developing, the city growing. And next to that, you can see Expo site.
The actual expo site.
Yeah, the actual expo site.
Now, I've heard so much about the expo, and the sphere of the expo has become kind of iconic. They built this huge glass globe, so I can't wait to go see it.
Want to see it?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, I can see why this has become an Astana landmark, because it is such a stunning building, just a giant glassy marble that you can see from all over Astana.
Isn't it amazing to see that, to have that here in Astana? And this sphere is Kazakhstan Pavilion.
Okay.
And the building around that contains other countries' pavilions here. And if you know, there are more than 100 countries which are presented here in Expo site here.
I was tempted to count all the flags because you can see all the flags for the different countries here. It's amazing just how many countries from all around the world have come here to set up a pavilion. They're all focusing on this theme of future energy. So trying to explore how to find some kind of alternative energy sources, how to make life on Earth more sustainable, all very noble goals. And I have to give you credit for being a volunteer at the expo, trying to help all the visitors who are coming here. I think you probably have some work to do, Aigurim.
Yeah, sorry, I am running over the time.
But thank you for taking your time and showing us around. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And hey, thank you all out there for coming along with us to Astana. I hope you can see that even though this is such a fascinating corner of the city, there is so much in this capital to explore. So until next time, Salvo, Baka, and goodbye.
In wintry drops to -40. Right through Kyzyloda flows one of the main rivers of the Semirechye, Sirdarya. The city stretches for 10 kilometers along its banks on both sides. 255 kilometers away from the Baikonur Cosmodrome is located. Now life in Kyzyloda is quite measured, but very few people know that some 200 years ago there were multiple military conflicts and bloody battles. The ancient buildings of the city store in their walls a lot of secrets, which has almost no mentions in historical sources. Watch in today's episode. Well, you know, these enters, exits. It's pre-Soviet period. But we have heard that there are no such documents in the archives. Who fought for supremacy in the region? Kokand residents tried to return Akhmechet. For this purpose, a 7,000 army was sent here. The Kokand army lost many soldiers and was forced to retreat. What secrets are kept in the old buildings of Kyzyloda? As far as I can remember, the old people said that all this was connected with a fortress by underground passages. The amazing story of a small city full of wars, exploits and secrets in this episode of The Time Puzzle. The Silk Road was the reason for the creation of many cities. This place was the key in the region. There were many military clashes over the territory. Eventually, the fortress was founded. Houses, a school, an Orthodox church and a Muslim mosque were built. However, only a few people know what secrets are kept in these buildings. My name is Andrei Slozhin and now I am in Kyzyloda and you are watching The Time Puzzle. The Silk Road connected many countries: China, India, Europe, Persia and Arabia. This road passed through the territory of modern Kazakhstan. The Silk Road reached its peak in the 18th, 19th centuries, passing through Central Asia. Few people know that Kyzyloda was founded thanks to this trade road, but in the beginning it had a completely different name. The fortress of Akh Mosque was founded in 1818 by Omar Khan, the 7th ruler of the Uzbek dynasty of Ming of the Kokand Khanate. There were 3 wells, 2 mosques, madrasas and about 50 houses. All this was enclosed by fortified walls, the height of which reached 11.5 meters. A moat was dug around the fort and it was filled with water. The opinions of historians about the year of the foundation of the fortress diverge. Some believe that this outpost was erected in 1817. Other sources indicate 1818-1820 years. There are also disagreements about where exactly they were built. Some believe that the fortification was first built on the left bank of the Sirdarya River, and a year later, the Akh Mosque was moved to the right bank. Others claim that the fortress was immediately built on the right bank in 1818. In any case, they both agree that the outpost stood in a huge hollow called Bekali Koga and was surrounded on all sides by reed and shrub thickets. These natural obstacles were not the only way to protect the fortification. It was called Akhmechet because there was a white mosque in the middle of the fortress. It was surrounded by a moat, the width of which reached 11 meters, and the walls were 11 meters high, and the lower part of the walls, their width was 10.5 meters, and the upper part 4 meters. Such a huge wall. And in every wall there were cannons and people. There were 400 soldiers who lived in this fortress. The Kokandis who lived here raided the Kazakh owls, stole cattle and took prisoners. Dissatisfied with this state of affairs, the Kazakhs assembled detachments and resisted the conquerors. This was written by a Russian scientist, ethnographer Ivan Anichikov and colonel of the Russian army Alexei Maksheyev. The first described the life and struggle of the Kazakh Batyr Jan Koja. The second spoke about the confrontation of Nurmuhamed Uli in the book Description of the Lower Reaches of the Sirdarya. More detailed information about the national liberation struggle of the Kazakhs and Jan Koji Batyr is given in Kyrgyz steppe of the Orenburg department of Lothar Meyer, German chemist, corresponding member of the Petersburg Academy of Sciences. In each of these works, to some extent, the reason because of which the Kazakhs constantly rebuffed the Kokand is indicated.
На каждую семью было 6 баранов в год. 24 мешка.
For each family there were 6 rams per year, 24 bags of coal and 4 carts of saksaul. But as you know, it was easy for the rich to pay, but it was very difficult for the poor to pay the tax. And so in our regions there were riots against the Kokand Khanate. And when the Governor-General Perovsky came here, the Kazakh people took it as a release and supported this campaign on the Akhmechet. In the storming of the fortress, 2,850 people participated, 2,300 of which were soldiers and officers of the Russian army and 500 Kazakhs who acted as scouts. On the 3rd of July 1853, the army approached the walls of the fortress. Perovsky divided his army into 5 batteries, which surrounded the fortress and began a siege. In the armament of Perovsky army were not only experienced warriors, but powerful at the time artillery. Perovsky had a total strength of 2,500 people. They included 1,500 cavalry, 17 cannons and missile artillery, a battalion and a mine battalion. There the ratio of troops was large and he had more equipment. In many respects, Perovsky was helped by intelligence data obtained from local Batyrs. So in one of the sorties, it was possible to clarify that the Kokand residents had only 3 cannons, which they transferred from the tower to the tower. In addition, from the walls of the fortress, grenades constantly flew towards the besiegers. On July the 8th, along the walls of the fortress, fire began from all the guns. 160 projectiles and 40 rockets were fired. But these shots did not cause serious damage to the 8-meter adobe walls of the fortification. In addition, the Kokand people fired their guns from them. In 1852, Blaramberg hiked here, but his campaign was repulsed. And in 1853, thoroughly prepared, the Governor-General Perovsky himself came here. He had 2 ships which were requested from Sweden, the ship Obruchev and the ship Perovsky. Despite the obvious superiority of the troops of Perovsky in armament and strength, the defenders of the fortress continued to be fiercely resisted. When the Kokand people ran out of grenades, they began to fire with leather bags filled with gunpowder and also snipped from the walls of the fortress. The fortress held despite the constant bombardment. Perovsky wrote a letter and sent him to Akhmechet with the messenger. The text said that he does not want to destroy the walls of the fortification completely, as sooner or later he will still get it and he will not destroy his wall but enter through the gate. In addition, Perovsky offered the Kokand residents not to resist and leave the fortress. In response, the Kokand residents made a sortie out of the fortress on the night of July the 20th and captured 2 soldiers. They were executed, showing contempt and fearlessness. In response, Perovsky appointed an assault on July the 28th, 25 days after the siege began. When he came here, he gave them time of 15 days so that they liberated the city and left. But they did not give up and there was a battle. They were thrown back, they fled from here, and 1,500 people came to support them, but they too were defeated. On the night of July the 28th, 1853, the northeastern wall was blown up. In the resulting gap, the soldiers went to the assault. 40 minutes later, the fortress fell. The commandant of Akhmechet, Muhammad Vali, was killed in a fight. The losses of the Kokand residents amounted to 212 people, of whom 206 were men, 4 women and 2 children. Perovsky lost 13 soldiers during the assault and 4 more during the siege. The fortress was taken, but the fight for it did not end there. Kokand residents tried to return Akhmechet. For this purpose, a 7,000 army was sent here. The siege began on August the 24th, 1853 and lasted until December. The Kokand army lost many soldiers and was forced to retreat. No matter how desperately the Kokands fought to keep their outpost, all their attempts were crowned with a crushing defeat. August the 31st, 1853, for the storming and taking the fortress Akhmechet, Perovsky received a letter of gratitude. In the spring of 1854, the construction of the fort began here, and the adjacent territory, over 80,000 square kilometers in size, was called the Perovsky district, where the main inhabitants were Kazakhs, almost 180,000 people. In the same year, by the decree of the Empress, the Akhmechet fortress was renamed to the Fortress of Perovsk. A new period began in the life of the province near the Sirdarya River. The first thing was to restore the walls of the old fortress. In 1867, the county already consisted of 2 branches, 23 balis and 186 auls. Perovsk itself was constructively built up. New buildings were built, irrigation ditches were built, areas and gardens were set. The architecture of the city of Perovsk of the 19th century is very similar to the buildings in the city of Orenburg. During construction, the same materials were used. Perovsky, as Governor-General of Orenburg, could not have been unaware of the underground passages under the city. The order on their laying was given by the first governor of the city, Ivan Nepluyev. The construction of underground tunnels in Orenburg began in the second half of the 18th century, and as you know, Perovsky became governor of Orenburg and Samara provinces in 1851. And once Perovsky led the construction of underground tunnels in one city, it is quite possible that he used this experience in Perovsk. The film crew of the program asked about the secret dungeons in the State Archive of the Kyzyl region. Well, you know, these enters and exits, it's pre-Soviet period, but we have heard, but there are no such documents in the archives. Then, well, you know, these fortification documents, they're of classified nature. In order to understand this riddle, we decided to study in more detail the architecture of the oldest buildings in Kyzyl. On October the 15th, 1855, the first Orthodox church in the town of Perovsk was opened. It was just a marquee where church liturgies were held. Later, adobe church was built. But because of the Sirdarya spill, the unreliable adobe was blurred and the building became unusable. Then in 1868, the church was built of strong burnt brick. Since then, it has not changed its appearance. There is a bell tower in front. The height of the building is 18 meters. The temple was designed for 250 to 300 parishioners. At the church there is a site. Now it is planted with trees, and before here there were vineyards and a garden. Preparing for the program and studying the information, I realized one thing. The data about this monument of architecture varies greatly. Each historian tells in his own way, and we met Archpriest Vitaly, who at one time studied the archives of the Kazan Temple of the Holy Virgin, so he could tell us the real information about this church. First they built the adobe church, but here we have the river Darya near, which was poured, and the river was poured, and the walls of this temple were destroyed. Therefore, it was decided to put this particular temple here, which now stands today, until today. A little later in the city, they began to build a mosque. It is located near the Orthodox Church. Its construction began in 1875. It lasted for about 3 years.
Себебі мешіттің тарихына үңілсек, 1878 жылы айтпай
If you recall the history of the mosque, in 1878 it was founded by Aydbay Baltabay Tegi. This is said in many sources, and according to other sources it was built not by Aydbay but by his father. So the father built a mosque and named it in honor of his son Aydbay.
Қай жерде мұсылмандар болса, сол жерге құлшылық орнына рухани ошақ ретінде.
The reason for the construction of the mosque was very important. Where Muslims live, there must necessarily be a place for prayer. So the founders of the mosque were Baltabay or his son Aydbay. The mention of the construction of the Aydbay Mosque, and now the mosque wears his name, was found in church books. Father Pilimon, the first priest of the temple, witnessed the erection of both religious buildings. Then he kept notes from the parish tent. He writes, Muslims with the beginning of Aydbay Baltabayev built their mosque fast, and the Orthodox Church, laid down simultaneously with the mosque in 1878, was built slowly. What was associated with the delay in the construction of the temple is still unclear. Father Pilimon did not bring it to the annals. Church books at that time were the only documents that recorded the history of the city. According to their data, in Perovsk at the time lived 5,000 people plus a military garrison. Special attention is paid to the census of the names of officials and military commanders. In church books in those years there was no the registry office, therefore it performed the function of the registry office. That is, records were kept of birth, death and marriage, and there are a lot of requests for us on the basis of genealogy. That is, people are looking for their ancestors. They try to recover their genealogy, and we take a lot of information from these books. Another key building is the former barracks of Perovsk. It was built in 1896. The building material used in the construction of all three main structures of Perovsk was brick, which, according to some historians, produced here, according to others, was imported from Kazalinsk. Nevertheless, this is not the only thing that unites these structures. The facilities are located within a 5-minute walk. Most likely, this arrangement of buildings was not chosen by chance. The first specialized buildings for troops were still known in ancient Rome. The first barracks in Spain appeared in the 16th century, in France in the 17th century, in Russia in the 18th. Now there is a gallery where works of local artists are exhibited. But in the 19th century there were military bunks here. The main customer of the barracks was the Orenburg General Governorship. This is how the building is described by Lieutenant General Alexander Gaines in his diary of 1866 journey to Turkestan. We drove up to Kubasov's post. It consists of a barracks of ridiculous construction, something like a stables, with an inexplicable tower on top and narrow long loopholes on the main building. Kubasov's post guards the ferry at Fort Perovsky through the Sirdarya, which is not far from there and is divided into Jamandarya and Karauzyan. At the picket, the Cossacks live, obliged to transport everyone on the iron boat that is here. Judging by the description of the General Lieutenant, this appearance and project of the barracks was not similar to the technology and design of similar buildings of that time. The architecture of the Orthodox Church in Perovsk also stood out from the general mass. In its structure, it is a Byzantine temple. It is in the form of a cross and is unique in that it has survived to our days as if from a foundation. Even the roof, which now exists, although it requires a little investment to replace it, has not changed since then. The only thing that we have gilding, and in order not to spoil its historical value, we covered it from above, so we could do it. And so the temple is very unique in that it is in the form of a cross. It is the only one in Kazakhstan according to such historical values. Well, according to the spiritual value too, which was not destroyed and now has survived to this day. The temple was built according to the project of the architect Yesakov. The engineer Kalinin supervised the process of the church's erection. Until December 1906, the church was under the jurisdiction of the military department, after which it became the jurisdiction of the diocese. In history, this is a rare case when a religious institution was under the patronage of the military. Oddly enough, the money for the construction of the temple was found quickly. The construction of the church costed the city 35,000 rubles, of which 5,000 were collected by parishioners. The rest have allocated from the treasury of Perovsk. There were 9 bells in the temple. The largest is 136 puds, or 2,227 kilograms. Where the bells disappeared, there is no reliable information, but now the modern bells are installed on the bell tower of the Holy Kazan Cathedral of the Mother of God icon. Subsequently, with the advent of Soviet power, the temple did not escape the fate of most religious buildings. Most of the churches were used as stables, warehouses, dormitories, and many were simply destroyed. The church in Kyzyl was abolished. In 1937, the building was given a local history museum. The frescoes in the temple are simply broken with axes. Only the floor remained untouched. The floor in this temple is lined with cast iron tiles. This was done because the parishioners were mostly military. They wore boots with spurs. Wooden floor would quickly become worthless. Cast iron tiles were laid immediately after the construction of the walls. Such a decision was rational. A similar cast iron floor is in the Moscow Kremlin. Near the church were barracks where the families of the military lived. Later, in front of the church, a school was built for the children of the servicemen. So for a short period in Perovsk, there were 2 temples of various faiths. It is interesting that the presence of a mosque in the city played an important role as a guarantor of security. Another feature of the mosque, our ancestors say that when roaming from one locality to another, they first sent messengers to see if there is a mosque there. If there is a mosque, we will spend the night there for a day or 2 and so on. Because there will be a place for namaz, for prayer. They believed that where the mosque is, there is no theft, this place is safe, there will be no threat. And if there is no mosque there, our ancestors believed that there people should not stop. They can be dangerous. The Aydbay Mosque, as well as the Orthodox Church, was built on the donations of local residents. Then they collected just a huge amount for that time, 40,000 rubles. The main contribution to the donation for the construction was made by the merchant from Bukhara, Aydbay Baltabayev. According to historical data, Aydbay personally engaged in this search for construction managers. His choice fell on the masters of Iskan and Kamal. They were looking for specialists from Turkestan. Further special instructors were invited from Bukhara and created all conditions for them to serve the people. Originally, the building was built like a mosque, but at the same time there was a historical madrasa. So according to the construction of the mosque, according to materials, a brick, one can see the spiritual and historical appearance. Notice 2 absolutely identical walls, but with one huge difference. This wall is almost 150 years old, and this one was reconstructed in 2011-2012. The difference can be felt only by hearing. Here, the sound is sonorous, but here it is more deaf. The building of the mosque contained more than 500 believers. There was also madrasas here. In 1980, the architects from the Kazprojekt Restauracija Institute became interested in the mosque. They conducted a series of studies, studied the material from which the building was built, and inspected the iron roof. This was done in order to bring the mosque to the list of architectural monuments of the Sirdarya cities. 2 years later, the building was added to the list of monuments of history and culture of Republican significance of Kazakhstan and taken under the supervision of the state. But few people know that this mosque is unique in its kind. After reconstruction, the mosque looks quite modern. Only these 4 columns remained unchanged. They were just painted. But there is one more interesting feature. Here is a real well. It is here, that's right here. There is still water. This upper part of the well, it was also reconstructed. There are those bricks at the bottom. They are from 1878. According to the assumption of historians and local historians, the vault is located behind the well, which connects the Orthodox temple, mosque and barracks building. There is also the opinion that a small branch led to the old bazaar, which is located just in the middle between these 3 buildings. Another feature of this mosque is that there is a well under the mosque. It is inside the mosque, in a place, in a depth opposite the entrance, on the left wing of the mosque. Still, this well is called an underground road, because together with this mosque there are several historical places that are of great importance for the city. To establish communication with these places and for security, and on the other hand to avoid any trouble, this is what this underground road was built for. According to other sources, the purpose of constructing this well was, in case of any invasions of enemies or a danger from outside, it could be hidden there for a while. Hence, there is a place for you to hide temporarily. From the point of view of the construction of military fortifications, such an underground passage was justified from several sides. Firstly, it is a constant access to fresh water. The second is quick evacuation. Third, the lightning movement of troops unnoticed from one part of the city to another. It is logical to assume, having collected all the facts about the construction of these 3 structures and the speed of money collection, as well as the direct control of Perovsky, that this is not a spontaneous building of the fort, but a clear and thorough plan of the commander. When Perovsky conquered the fortress, under the barracks on the other side of the coast of the Sirdarya was an underground passage. So it was like a hiding place. It was used for military purposes, so the elders state. And the fact that this underground passage was used for military purposes, for this it is necessary to carry out archaeological work, research. There are some inconveniences from the point of view of natural geography, because the river of the Sirdarya flows in 500 meters from this place. So underground tunnels must be filled with water. In addition, this well had one more purpose besides providing fresh water. The temperature in the summer month in Kizilorda is not rarely over 45 degrees. Inside the mosque, it is much lower. The temperature difference can be easily felt. Another feature of the mosque is the well, which is inside the mosque. The well contributes to the proper preservation of the air inside the mosque. Second, you know that our region is hot. This is not a mountainous area. In those days, there were no modern air conditioners. Therefore, this was taken into account. Therefore, when the summer heat came into the mosque, the coolness from the well would purify the air of the mosque. This can be felt at any time when you come from the street inside. The mosque, as well as the church during the rule of the Soviets, was also abolished. The fact that the building was not demolished was largely contributed to its fundamental: strong walls, high ceilings, convenient location in the city center, and possible underground passages. Despite the fact that there were no data on the construction of dungeons in the archives, rumors of this are among the Kyzyloda people. That's what the old residents of the city told. There were passages in height 2.5 sajans, laid out with burnt bricks, the same as used for the construction of a mosque, a church, and a barracks. There it was even possible to drive a small wagon harnessed by a small horse. Only the leadership of the city, higher military ranks, and rich merchants could get into the underground passage. Almost every native inhabitant of the city has heard of these secret passages. Vladimir Tolokonnikov was no exception. I am a native of Kyzyloda. I was born in Kyzyloda in 1946. In the distant 1923 of the last century, my father was born here. Grandpa, of course, was from Russia. As far as I can remember, the old people said that all this was connected with the fortress by underground passages. There is a uniqueness such that there is an underground passage linking the mosque and the church. Between the Alisade, the school, and between here is another ancient building, we have barracks here, which is now used here on the river bank. Here is this triangle, it is between them, an underground passage. And was someone there? Have you seen it in general? No, I've seen it. I have been there. But now Darya, it is silted up. There is water. I've been there. When the building here was destroyed, it fell down. It was made of brick vaults. They still exist. In addition to underground passages, according to Archpriest Vitaly, there is another mystery which is kept by the Orthodox Church. According to the priest, under the foundation of the church, there can be another room. There is one more rumor that we have another temple under the temple, but we cannot find the door to it. That is, it is necessary to do some kind of geological exploration, which we tried. I dig through several places. We have a foundation. It is made. It is also unique. It is a brick foundation. That is, imagine the building itself, meter walls. The building itself stands on a brick foundation. It's like a ladder, in this order to a depth of 3.5 meters. Such statements of the archpriest are not groundless. While carrying out repairs on the territory of the church, Father Vitaly picked up the slabs near the walls and found another vault made of bricks. Without venturing to excavate further, the rector of the temple simply removed the sand, looked at the building that was opened, and packed everything into place. In this limit here we dug to a depth of 3.5 meters, and the foundation, which is, it seemed to us that it was so chopped off. In fact, it comes here to this place. That is, it turns out like this, like a ladder. Here, that is, like this. So it is depicted. Here it is, and below. That is, every brick, every row that is complex, it's like this. On this distance, it goes down. And it turns out, theoretically, there is another underground temple there. Yes, theoretically, there is a temple that lies here along the entire perimeter. That is, from this, as it is difficult to see, and there is also a temple inside. And see just this moment, there is the passage, the one that is exactly between the connections with the mosque and the fortress. That's just the underground passages were exactly here. You could go through. Another unusual architectural feature of the Holy Kazan Temple of the icon of the Mother of God is the foundation. It is made of bricks, but it is designed in such a way that it is not exposed to destructive natural factors. So thoughtful, this means that this foundation system of the temple, it is so clever that the root of the tree, it cannot invade this foundation and destroy it. It goes along the edges as a brick is built along it, but inside to destroy, not a single brick destroyed inside. The film crew of the program continued to search for the mysterious dungeons of Kızılorda, but on the assurances of absolutely all the respondents, now it is almost impossible to do this. Gathering the facts together, we can confidently say that it is necessary to continue researching the 3 oldest buildings in Kızılorda. Perhaps the find of mysterious dungeons will fill the white spots in the history of the city and maybe even write new pages. Unfortunately, it's impossible to get to secret passages under Kızılorda now. They say that the last entrance was immured in 2014, but let us hope that someday Kızılorda dungeons will still be studied. My name is Andrei Slozhin and you watched The Time Puzzle. See you!
The Great Steppe, millenniums of events, hundreds of nomadic tribes and people. They lived, worked, made discoveries, conquered large tracts of lands, and left us some mysteries. To learn more about it, watch the project called Enigma of the Great Steppe. This is one of the oldest streets in Almaty. Many use its old name, Vinogradov, although it has long been renamed in honor of one of the first Kazakh folk heroes, Karasai Batyr from the Shaprashti family. This street is a part of the streets named after 3 Batyrs because it is located between streets Bogunbay Batyr and Kabunbay Batyr. But logically, one of the streets was supposed to get the name of another warrior, Argintai, because he was Karasai's best friend. They became part of history as the leaders of the 600 unit, which confronted the enemy armada. People called them the Kazakh Spartans, and the place where they fought was called Kazakh Thermopylae. In the spring of 1643, the young Sultan Jahangir, the second son of Khan Yesim, received disturbing news from his ally, Kundulian Taisha. Erdini Batur, a Chronos Oirat prince who previously united all the Oirat tribes, was going to arrange campaign to the western lands. Despite the fact that Kundulian himself was Oirat, he decided to warn Jahangir of danger because he was at enmity with Erdini Batur, and he did not accept Erdini's claim to be the prince. The Kazakhs did not have their own written chronicles. We cannot look through the veil of the centuries and authentically state what was happening in the Kazakh Khanate at those times. It is known that after the death of Yesim Khan, his eldest son, Jibek, took the place on the throne. But Jibek soon died, and the exact date of his death is not known. Some sources state that Jibek died in 1648. Others believe that he died in 1643. It is the year of Erdini Batur's new campaign to the Kazakh lands. If we consider the second version, it is easy to assume that the next candidate for the throne, Sultan Jahangir, was in an extremely difficult situation. By the middle of the 17th century, a very complicated political situation developed on the territory of the Kazakh steppe. The death of Yesim Khan led to the lack of centralized authority. There were a lot of candidates to become Khan. A lot of Genghis Khan's descendants wanted to be on the white Khoshma, to sit on the throne, and thus very few people supported Jahangir Sultan. He was not the only son of Yesim Khan. He was not the eldest son of Yesim Khan. Nevertheless, it was Jahangir who led the people to oppose the huge army of Erdini Batur. Unfortunately, there are no reliable sources about how Jahangir was imprisoned. However, our domestic historians suggest this happened in 1635, during Batur's first campaign to the west. At that time, the Kazakh militia headed by Khan Jibek and Sultan Jahangir was defeated. The young Sultan became hostage. Later, he was released during the negotiations. Realizing that he had no support within the country, Jahangir made an unexpected move. he decided to confront the enemy with only 600 soldiers who were under his rule. It was his detachment. Famous soldiers, including two friends, Karasai from Shaprashti and Argintai from the Argin family, fought side by side with Jahangir.
В итоге вместе с ним на вот эту битву навстречу.
As a result, his personal detachment, his personal nukers, guards, confronted the enemy army. All of them were prepared people who had combat experience. They had already faced with the Oirots previously, and they knew how to behave with them. They knew how these Jungarian tribes operated during the war.
Эти джунгарские племена во время войны, ну и так далее, да? И для того, чтобы этот
Jahangir Khan decided to form an unexpected alliance with Jalantos Bahadur to stop this plan of detention, to stop that moving mass from the east.
такой, ну, возможно, неожиданный, может быть, союз.
Jalantos Bahadur is a native of the Kazakh steppes, and perhaps ethnically he is Kazakh.
Этнически он, ну, наверное, больше его можно отнести к казахам.
So why was this alliance so unexpected, both for Jahangir's rivals in the Khan's title fight and for the Oirots themselves? What prevented two ethnically close people to unite the forces against the common enemy? Despite the fact that Jalantos Bahadur was a descendant of the Kazakh family of the Junior Juz, Alshin, he, like his father, devoted his life to the service to Bukhara emirs, Ashtarkhanid dynasty. Ashtarkhanids competed with the Kazakh Khans for dominance in Central Asia, and consequently there were conflicts between these two states. Jalantos Bahadur had a strong influence at the court of the Uzbek rulers, and even got the title of the Viceroy in Samarkand. He made a number of successful campaigns on the southern territories of the Kazakh Khanate, conquered Tashkent, which was under the Kazakhs' possession, and Turkestan, the capital of the state. Indeed, he was one of the main enemies of Yesim Khan. However, the Jungar expansion was a common threat, and after the Kazakhs, the Ashtarkhanids could fall victim to the swords of the eastern invaders. An understanding of this fact influenced the final decision of Jalantos to support the son of Yesim Khan. However, he had already supported his relatives during the first Jungar campaigns. What was the condition of the state at that moment? Who did influence on the reconciliation of the old enemies? In general, there are 4 Mongolian clans that are located in the western part of Mongolia: Khoshut, Turgut, Khoros, Durbet. Chinese call them Ilyuta. They are the Mongols. They lived on the left part of Mongolia. It is the western part of Mongolia. In Mongolian, it is Zungar. It is the left hand. This is how the word Jungar was originated. Kalmyks, Oirots are one and the same name. The word Oirot is also translated as Union of Four. In 1635, the son of the Oirot ruler Kharahula Batur united the scattered Oirot tribes and declared himself Hong Taiji, the title of supreme ruler. Later, he even received the title of Han from the Dalai Lama for the help to Tibetans. In 1640, he arranged a large Kurultai in Tarbagatai. Representatives of all Oirot families who lived in the territory of Jungaria, northern Mongolia, the Volga region, the northern Caucasus, Central Asia, western Mongolia, the Ural region, Siberia, eastern Turkestan, and Tibet took part in this Kurultai. The main goal of this meeting was the establishment of the Oirot Union, the empire of Khanates and principalities. During this convention, an important document was adopted, Ike Sajin Bichig, the Great Steppe Code, which regulated the internal legal relations between the Oirots and foreign policy. If someone attacks our state, commits murders, loots, and plunders a large number of people and settlements, then the Mongols and Oirat should unite and take attackers' possessions, give half to the fallen people, and the second half divide between the Oirat and Mongol princes. In case of an enemy attack on Mongolia or Oiratia, to inform these two states. If one of the princes of the frontier districts does not oppose the enemy, he should be punished and ordered to give 100 shells, 100 camels, and 1,000 horses. If the prince does not have such wealth, then he should give 10 shells, 10 camels, and 100 horses. Thus Hong Taiji Batur was given the title Erdini, which means jewel, managed to establish a powerful centralized state based on the laws of strict military discipline. In result of the campaigns on the territory of the Manchurian Qing Empire, Russia, states and tribal alliances of Central Asia, the territory of the Jungar Khanate widened significantly. Previously, the Kazakhs managed to dominate in the eastern part of Central Asia due to internal strives of the Oirats, and the balance of strength was changed soon. The territory of the northern part of Kazakhstan, which was conquered by the Khan Yesim, as a result of the collapse of the Siberian state, fell under the control of the Jungars, Kalmyks, and Nogais. The border between the Kazakh Khanate and the Moscow state disappeared, and the main territory of the Kazakhs was the Karatau, Sirdarya, Aral Sea regions. What was happening during this period in the Kazakh Khanate? How could the rulers of the Kazakhs withstand the growing threat from the east? By the middle of the 17th century, the Kazakhs were no longer the powerful centralized union of tribes like it was under the rule of Qasim Khan or Haknazar Khan. The Kazakh Khanate was in a political crisis caused by the struggle for power. There was a constant struggle between the Chinggisid Khans, direct blood descendants of Genghis Khan, and the local authorities of the Middle Estate. The Chinggisid Khans believed that they had the right to keep their subordinates to levy taxes and to make subordinates to participate in their raids and campaigns. But freedom-loving tribes, people led by these bees, did not want this. Who wants to obey? Who wants to pay tax? That's why there was no united, powerful state. The Kazakh Khans could not manage to collect taxes from the Kazakhs. Even if the Kazakh Khans came to power, they did not have a powerful resource so that they could buy weapons, hire an army, build cities, hire some scientists and poets. They were the same as the majority of the nomads. Well, they had more cattle, and that's it. And in the result of such conditions, the Sultan Jahangir decided to form an alliance with Zhalantos and confront the Oirats. This event was fixed in only one document, in the reply of Tobolsk generals Kurakin and Gagarin to Siberia. There was a story of ambassadors, Cossack Grishka Ilyin and Yurt's servant, Tatar Kuchemberdi Kuchev, who visited the court of Hong Taiji Erdini. Cossack Grishka Ilyin and Yurt's servant, Tatar Kuchemberdi Kuchev, told us that they heard from Hong Taiji, how Hong Taiji arranged campaign to the lands of the Sultan Jahangir and Zhalantos Batir. Altai, Kyrgyz, and Tumens with about 10,000 were under the flag of Hong Taiji. And when Jahangir Sultan heard about this campaign, he decided to confront Hong Taiji with the troops that consisted of 600 soldiers. But how was Jahangir going to confront the Oirat army, having only a small detachment? How did he plan to hold on until the arrival of the forces of Zhalantos Bahadur? The young sultan had a trick that allowed him to buy some time. He sent his detachment to the mountainous terrain so that the enemy army could not surround the detachment. Before that, he had managed to get 300 guns for his soldiers. After reaching the place of the future battle, Jahangir ordered his people to dig deep ditches and to put blocks. And Jahangir Sultan's people dug moats, put blocks, and 300 soldiers with guns sat in those moats. Jahangir took another 300 soldiers and spread out on the cliffs. As Hong Taiji's army got close to the moats, Jahangir Sultan's soldiers attacked them. And from the other side, Jahangir attacked with the rest of his soldiers. And thus, Jahangir Sultan managed to defeat the army of 10,000. The Batirs that followed Jahangir played the decisive role in the victory against the Oirats. The image of two friends, Argintai and Karasai, became the history thanks to this battle. Indeed, they became the first representatives of a peculiar caste of soldiers. The so-called Institute of Batirs began its formation after these two Batirs. The Institute of Batirs was formed as an independent phenomenon in the Kazakh Khanate in the beginning and middle of the 18th century, when Batirs really shone their skills in that battle, when they began to liberate the territory of Saryarka and Jitisu from the Jungarian invaders. There were a lot of Chinggisids, Khans, and Sultans, and each of them imagined himself as a future Khan. It was difficult for one person to become an authoritative Khan who could lead others. Later, by the middle of the 18th century, Ablai Khan managed this. And the role of consolidation of the Kazakh people was taken by Batirs, Kabanbay Batir, Boganbay Batir, Akhtambirdi, and many others.
Консолидации казахского народа Батыр, Кабанбай Батыр, Бакинбай Батыр, Ахтамберды, ну и многие Бакинбаев было 3 Батыра разных. А в 17 веке этот процесс
In the 17th century, the process of forming the Institute of Batirs just began. In general, caste of Batirs was like the class of the samurais in Japan, like the Janissaries in Turkey, like the Slacha in Poland, like the Mamluks in the Arabic world. They were soldiers who were freed from all other deeds, cattle grazing and so on. The only thing they must do was fight. This caste was needed when the invaders began arranging campaigns on the territories of the Kazakh lands. Using the peculiarities of the mountainous terrain wisely, Jahangir Sultan managed to organize the ambush and defeated the Oirats in crossfire. The Kazakhs used guns for the first time. And this was a completely unexpected case for the enemy. The mounted unit led by Batirs had only to beat the enemy. Thus, Jahangir managed to buy time and hold on until the arrival of Jalantos. In the result of the battle, the Oirats were defeated. But the trouble was that later the Kazakhs did not adopt this new method of warfare, in contrast to their enemies who managed to draw the right conclusions. After the usage of guns by the Kazakhs, the Dzungars understood the power that guns can have if to use in warfare. Not just when 1 of 10 shoots or 1 of 100 shoots, but in an organized system. It is a powerful weapon, and they began to make every effort to get guns for their army. The Dzungars had opportunities to arm their soldiers with guns. This is the reason why guns are never found on images and sculptures of Kazakh Batirs. The Kazakhs did not progress in military terms, and therefore they often were defeated. But this was after the battle near the river Orbulak. In this battle, the Oirots were completely defeated despite their superiority in numbers. However, scientists have certain doubts about the superiority. Such alignment of forces seems too questionable.
Я думаю, что это просто неправильный перевод, неправильное понимание. Ведь вот эти вот
I think that it is a wrong translation, that there was a misunderstanding. After all, these Russian ambassadors met with prisoners only. The number of army has always been a military secret. They considered Russia as an enemy. Why should they talk about the number of soldiers in the army? It was a secret. I think that any Jungarian kept the number of soldiers a secret. It's just a conclusion that they made from the conversations with the captives. And the captives couldn't know the exact number, or maybe they were wrong. There were 5 Tumens, 5 Taishas. Generals were in this campaign. Each Taisha took part in this campaign with his Tumen. Tumen is an army unit of 10,000 soldiers. But it was in the 13th century in the times of Genghis Khan. By the 17th century, word Tumen was used to a detachment with 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers. I think there were 5 Tumens. And 5 Tumens were incorrectly translated as 5 Tumens with 10,000 soldiers each.
И вот эти вот количество 5 туменов было неправильно переведено как 5 по 10 тысяч.
However, the prisoners could not be mistaken in the number of their troops. Consequently, if we assume that they really could not know the number of the enemy troops, then the version of detachment with 600 soldiers is a very real justification. In those days, moving towards the enemy with only 600 soldiers, even with half-armed soldiers, would be suicide. And the heroism of Jahangir's soldiers is indisputable. It was a feat which is remembered in history. Another subject of disputes among scientists connected with the Orbulak battle is the location of the battle. Which ridges could be called Kazakh Thermopylae? There are 2 versions. In April, Jahangir left Turkestan through the Karatau Mountains, passed the rivers Talas and Chu, and then arrived in Jetisu. Batur, in his turn, wanted to deceive Jahangir. He crossed the mountains of Altin Imel to the mountains of Koyandi. This is the former Jarkent district. These mountains are located between Jarkent district and the Kogali district, the mountains of Altin Imel and Koyandi. Between these mountains, there is a place with about 2 kilometers area in size. This place is surrounded by mountains from the east and south sides. According to other sources, the region of Simireche, Jetisu, was already captured by the Oirots to the time when the described events happened. The battle took place further west on the border of the Kazakh and Kyrgyz nomadic camps.
В здравом смысле и твердой памяти, если быть, географию, если чуть-чуть приблизительно знать.
In any way, knowing geography, it's hard to imagine that the battle could have been in the Jungarian Alatau, the place where it is believed that this battle took place. It is natural boundary Bil-Jailao, which is located between the Balkhash and Ili valleys. By that time of the battle, the whole eastern part of Jetisu was in Jungarian possession. Following this reasoning, the battle took place somewhere on the border of the Kazakh, Bukhara Khanats, and the Kyrgyz lands. That is, it's somewhere here, a little further east from Almaty, maybe in the Chu Valley, or maybe near the Chu Valley. The exact place of this battle was not recorded in written sources. It is the subject of controversy, speculation, and assumption. Having defeated formidable Erdeni Batur, Jahangir has shown who should sit on the Kazakh throne. Moreover, for the courage and ingenuity shown in this battle, the Kazakhs gave him nickname Salkam, which means impressive in translation from Kazakh. Jahangir devoted his whole life to fighting against the Oirots and died in battle, as befits a true warrior. He was buried in Turkestan. With regard to the friends Argintai and Karasai, they supported and were always near the young Han, becoming his closest assistants. They fought shoulder to shoulder against the Dzungars in the Battle of 1664 for the last time. They fought together until the day they died. They were even buried close to each other in the town called Kulishinbai Tobe, located on the territory of the modern Akmala region. And only on the map of Almaty the names of these two folk heroes are not mentioned, one after another.
And Jibek Khan, so that the latter strengthened. And since in the beginning they and after that many others, having fled, separated, and for some time were poor people and wanderers, they were called Kazakhs, and this nickname followed them and was established. Haydar Mirza, Babur's cousin. In 1465-1466, a lot of nomadic clans, subjects of Abulhai Khan, joined Kire and Jibek, that is, they became essentially independent. Since then, these nomads, separated from the Uzbek Khanate, began to be called Kazakhs, adventurers, rebels. Their separation was a great historical event, if we take into account the vast territory that they occupied and which was later settled by their descendants. Departure of nomadic Uzbeks from the Uzbek Khanate played an extremely important role in formation of the Kazakh people. There was a historical meeting of the emerging nationality with its future name. Tursun Sultanov. Looking ahead, it should be noted that after conquest of Timurid state by Shaybanids in the early 16th century, and after migration of about 300,000 Uzbeks to Movorana, there was, according to Yedege Marsanov and other scientists, a transfer of the ethnonym Uzbek from Eastern Dashti Kipchak to Central Asia. The Uzbeks, who remained in the territory of present-day Kazakhstan, began to be called Uzbek Kazakhs, and later simply Kazakhs. After that, heterogeneous groups of nomads entered the Kazakh people for the 16th century. They were formerly part of the Mangits, Mongols, Shaybanids, etc. The ethnonym Kazakh gradually embraced the whole array of Turkic-speaking tribes of nomads who lived in the territory of Kazakhstan.
Ханство Абулхаир-хана не было временным объединением кочевников.
Abulkair Khan's Khanate wasn't a temporary union of nomads. The presence of government officials, divans, tax system, and stamping coins with the name of the Khan, who was the head of state, all these statehood attributes testify that it was not a temporary nomadic union, but a patriarchal feudal state, although not centralized.
Царство патриархально-феодального типа.
Its political disintegration after Abulkair Khan's death was temporary and soon, since the 90s of the 15th century, was replaced by a new political association. from which arose the Uzbek state led by Muhammad Shaybani Khan and the Kazakh state with Burendik Khan. Where Abulkair Khan failed, his descendants succeeded.
A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The Code of Power. Despite the rain, the view is beautiful. For 7 centuries, people have been admiring the sea from up here. The name of the castle, Belver, translates from the Old Catalan as beautiful view. In Palma de Mallorca, the main city and port of the Spanish autonomous community of the Balearic Islands. In Catalonia and in the Balearic Islands, at the very beginning of the 14th century, portolans began to be manufactured, parchment maps for seafarers, covered with lines diverging like rays of the sun, designations of compass points. The maps were lavishly painted and often covered with bizarre images, from Sergei Markov's The Earth Circle. Among them, there is no equal to this one, covered with bizarre images with secrets encoded in them. The biblical Magi followed the star for some reason in the direction of Asia to the mysterious kingdom of Gog and Magog and the mysterious monastery on Isikul, the only European map of the world of the 14th century on which the nomadic empire is represented completely. The Catalan Atlas is the code of absolute power. It shows a lot of stories, and now experts, historians, repeatedly return to it. This map is important not only for our history, but for the whole history of the Eurasian steppes. We aren't able to unravel the image of Jibek, which is painted on the Catalan map. Chapter 1. The Royal Cartographer. The personal master of the world and compasses of King Aragon strolled along the Mallorcan waterfront on the first day, attentively looking at the faces. He asked about foreigners at the port who arrived and very often talked with slaves. There were many of them. The plague, a black death which took the lives of many Balearicans, and even noble ladies began to marry the slaves. Out of the Golden Horde, trapped in numerous battles, prisoners were brought in by the hundreds. During this time, there was chaos. There was a political struggle of everyone against everyone. If a family was taken prisoner, the husband and wife were not separated. But if only one woman was taken prisoner, then she automatically became free in the sense that she could be married as a slave to anyone. However, women were not often brought to Palma. After a prolonged sea voyage, such delicate creatures could not withstand it, but male captives essentially raised the demographic bar on the island. The governor of the island received a decree from the king Pedro of Aragon. The king was angry with slaves of Majorca and ordered to take extreme measures against them. In 1374, a Spaniard who lived in Majorca had from 10 to 50 slaves. From Sergei Markov's The Earth Circle. Even the census was announced. However, he was rather pleased with this fact. The stories of strangers about the steppe power stirred the imagination of the royal photographer. He wanted to proceed with the execution of the crowned orders, quickly as possible, the creation of an atlas of the world. In fact, it is such a book with huge information, which we cannot always see and understand with modern language and modern looks. The 6 sheets of parchment on wooden panels, just over half a meter each in length, On the first, the treatises on cosmography, astrology, and astronomy. By the way, the Earth in the form of a sphere is actually petited. There is a place for the advice to mariners. The rest, the major part of the atlas, is an expanded map with information about the overseas countries.
Автором каталонской карты является Крес, который практически...
The author of the Catalan map is Cresque, who practically fixed more on that map's cosmogenic views that were associated with the period of the Golden Horde at the beginning, or more precisely in the first half, of the 14th century.
Значит, Золотой Орды в начале, точнее, в первой половине XIV века.
Cresque, who is also known as Abraham Cresques, came from a Jewish family who received special privileges from the Aragonese crown for their exceptional talents. Chapter 2. Points on the map. The locals call it La Seo. The most beautiful building of the city is the Cathedral of Santa Maria, and it has no less beautiful legend. The King of Aragon, having directed his troops to Majorca, got into a storm. The flotilla was on the verge of destruction, and the monarch asked for the salvation of the Virgin Mary, promising to build a temple in her honor. The noise from the construction site, which reached the windows of his workshop, didn't interfere with his concentration. Considering another riddle, the royal cartographer watched the walls of the future temple as they rose. The petals of pale pink flowers, dropping from the almond trees, fell onto the table, littered with manuscripts. The swarthy man blew them away to continue working on the image of Khan Baluk. Near the Chinese capital was a horned griffin, revealing wings. One more surprising than the other, gradually filled the surface of the map. From Sergei Markov's The Earth Circle. With this portrait, the master had to suffer pretty badly. The manuscripts of the travelers helped a little in creating the image. The ruler of the country, which he'd never visit, Jibek, Senor de Sarmat, the master carefully deduced the Latin letters on the parchment. After all, if we take this image purely as a descendant of Genghis Khan, then the picture that we see is the image of Jibek and doesn't fit into the canons of the heirs of Genghis Khan. He's there in a turban with bare feet. In his hands he holds a golden ball and scepter.
С босыми ногами показан, в руке держит золотой шар и скипетр.
As one of the greatest Khans of the Golden Horn, here he is depicted just sitting on a pillow. Behold, with golden balls in his hands, a symbol of power. The pillow, power and balls are all a symbol. The map is very rich. It's full of all kinds of subjects, both realistic and mythological. The fact that the author of the atlas worked with available written sources is easily identified. There are citations from several inscriptions on the map. The book on the diversity of the world by Marco Polo, the notes of the Armenian ruler, inflorescence of the stories of the lands of the East, and the report on the journey to China of the Franciscan Pordenone. If we say, well, here is the famous Armenian king, he traveled, he naturally tried to isolate some of the things related to Christianity closer to him. The same for Plano, Carpini, and Rubruk, Marco Polo. They naturally tried to depict things that seemed unusual, something that attracted their attention. Carpini and Rubruk, who completed their expeditions in the middle of the 13th century, are somewhat outdated. All the same, more than 100 years had passed. The political information of the enterprising Genoese did not differ either. To him, there are some questions about the fact that much was just invented. Some animals that he described. This is the claim that exists for Marco Polo, right? Some things can clearly be found, factual errors or exaggerations, or simply figments of the imagination. For example, a miniature illustrating Marco Polo's notes about diamond seekers. At the bottom of the gorges with snakes, they throw meat, to which the precious stones would stick, and specially trained eagles would rise the pieces up to the hunters again. People didn't imagine to travel after Marco Polo described his roads. They were afraid to travel to Central Asia because they thought that barbarians lived there. Nevertheless, the Catalan atlas created by Cresque is, in our time, considered quite accurate. Both the Caspian Sea and the Mangostar Peninsula are located in the right places, and parts of the modern territories of northwestern Kazakhstan are also on the map. This is a Portolan map from 1375, on which, as a matter of fact, the whole of Eurasia is depicted. On one version of the map, the Catalan map is depicted as a caravan that goes from Sarachik to China. Not all cities are recognizable today. Inscriptions are difficult to discern. But, for example, the Catalan atlas depicted Agsikid. The archaeologists found it in 1949. This is an ancient settlement of Tatigai on the lower reaches of the Nura River. In this map, there are many exact facts, and it was made for travelers, those devoted to the Great Silk Road. Chapter 3. A Mysterious Portrait. From the Aragonese Almudena Palace, which is next to the cathedral under construction, to the house and the workshops are all within reach. But just in case, he took his sons with him. Yehuda is also a talented cartographer, and he also deserved a royal award. The monarch paid for the atlas 140 florins. This is about half a kilogram of gold, and Cresques was afraid that his work would provoke criticism. The map turned out to be too innovative. He was shown it as a frozen history, but over a longer period. The main trade routes and directions along which caravans went were shown. He showed some battlefields here, moments of some battles. The most famous version was a gift to the French monarch, and to this day 6 parchments are kept in Paris. Interestingly, most maps of an earlier period have strangely disappeared, and yet, for what purpose was the Catalan atlas created? Sea charts were the key to the empire, opening the way to wealth. Therefore, in the early stages of the development, they were passed behind a dense veil of secrecy. There is no doubt that the complete disappearance of all nautical maps of the early period are directly connected with their secret nature, and with the great importance that they sometimes acquired as a powerful political or economic weapon. From Lloyd Brown, The History of Geographic Maps. The atlas didn't fit with religious dogma despite the fact that biblical plots are present. The Catalan map reflects a new geopolitical reality where there is also a threat emanating from the steppe empires and a desire to be friends with their rulers. And let's not forget that the Mongol rulers were very tolerant after all. Figures of steppe rulers, tamgas, emblems, flags, an indication of Muslim and Christian sanctuaries, symbolic compositions in which an unknown message is encoded. And there may be predictions for the future associated with the plague epidemic in the middle of the 14th century. It's very interesting, the fact that why is Jibek depicted on the Catalan map of 1375? One of the main reasons is that he was recognized as the ruler of the northern regions. The ruler who, according to the European chronicles, used the Black Death as a weapon, but at the same time the map was created, he'd not even been alive for 2 decades. In 1360, a great battle began when Berdibek killed his father Janibek and then resigned. But he did not reign for a long time. He was also killed. So the successors of the Steppe Empire were interested in the struggle for power, which, much more than plans for a new conquest of the world. Epilogue. Keys to the riddle. The ominous words, Gog and Magog, were carefully written out near the image of the wall of Gog and Magog, located behind the mountains of the Caspian. Variegated flags and coats of arms, a siren holding the tails of 2 dolphins, huge birds in the form of storks attacking people, the Eastern lords sitting on thrones, sailing ships. What was not depicted on the Catalan map, from Sergei Markov, The Earth Circle. On any atlas, this is a subject that gives concise information, right? It should be so, but the Catalan atlas, as in principle and many medieval ones, are like historical portraits. They contain a very long history. Long and very mysterious, perhaps the most mysterious miniature, the key to which was tried to be picked up by scientists such as Valikhanov, Semenov, Chenshansky, and Kolpakovsky. Still excites modern researchers, the monastery on the shore of Lake Isikul, in which, according to the cartographer, the relics of one of the Christian apostles are kept. However, it's better to talk about this in another program.
Art Focus is a program about the brightest and the most current developments in the fields of art and cultural life in the country and in the world. It is a report about the greatest cultural events like musical concerts, festivals, art exhibitions and theater premieres. You will be able to visit the most interesting theater sets as well as workshops of famous artists, and you will also get acquainted with the best art representatives and learn the secrets of their crafts together with the Art Focus program. Art Focus is always in the focus of the brightest events. Within the framework of Expo 2017, Astana Opera presented outstanding piece of Kazakh musical art, national opera entitled Abay, composed by Ahmed Zhubanov and Latif Hamidi. The piece is themed on Mukhtar Avezov's libretto. The plot is based on tragic events in Abay Kunambayev's life, who is a Kazakh poet, educator and philosopher. This is the story of romantic and tragic love of two young people, Aidar and Ajar. Abay and his follower Aidar oppose the conservatism of the old world, but their struggle is full of pain and injustice.
So this is my first opera here, so I really didn't know what to expect. And I've never seen a Kazakh opera before either. I've been to a few operas in the past at various theaters, but I'll tell you, this ranks right up there. It's been absolutely beautiful. The singing's been good, the staging has been very elaborate, we really enjoyed that. And I read just enough about the story before we came to that gives me a chance of actually following what's going on. So I like the story of Ajar and Aidar, I like the story of kind of this intergenerational struggle, some members of the tribe trying to follow tradition, and then Abay coming and defending kind of the Romeo and Juliet and the change from the past. It's really sweet.
The piece has already become one of the favorite performances of residents and guests of the capital. The opera is staged by Italian director Giancarlo Del Monaco and honored artist of Kazakhstan, Professor Yesmukhan Obayev. Opera's stage setting is designed by the famous stage designer Ezio Frigerio and Oscar winner Franco Squarcipino. The first night of Abay Opera was back in 1944 and was appraised by critics as Kazakh musical masterpiece. I have been interested in Abay Opera for a long time with a strong intention to come and see it. Abay as a person is a spiritual mentor of Kazakh people, and a lot of his magnificent and wise words can be heard in this opera. This opera vividly reflects Abay's traits glorified by Mukhtar Avezov in his work, representing Abay as an enlightened and genuine patron of the culture of his people. name of a great poet and writer Seken Seyfulin is closely connected with Astana, which has been reflected by the founder of Kazakh literature in his famous historical novel entitled Thorny Path. If you drive along the capital street named after Mukhtar Avezov, it is impossible not to pay attention to a beautiful long house, which is a place on one of the busiest streets where Seken Seyfulin has worked in the 20s, 30s of the last century. Today, it is his largest museum in Kazakhstan. The house was built in 1846 by merchant Kazantsev, and in 1920 there was an editorial office in which Seken Seyfulin worked. By the order of the Council of Ministers of Kazakh SSR, Seken Seyfulin Museum was opened on the 21st of January 1988. He was born on the 15th of October 1894 in Saryarka, Zhanarkinsky district, which is now Karagandy region. His real name is Sadvakas, but his mother kindly called him Seken, and since then we know him under that name. In 1995, the museum was visited by President of Kazakhstan Nursultan Nazarbayev. In his visit, he left a note in Seken Seyfulin's book entitled Kokshetau with the following words: "Let the spirit of our bright-minded ancestor Seken Seyfulin guide our independent country." Today, the museum's funds account for 5,000 items. Writer's belongings are donated by his wife and relatives. The exposition begins with materials reflecting Seken Seyfulin's home grounds, with a maquette of his house in Akmoninsk, an Aul school where he has been working as a teacher after graduating from seminary, as well as the first editions of books and documents related to state activity. The museum has a recreated model of Seken Seyfulin's bedroom, where the writer's belongings are of great interest. Photographs reflect not only the poet's life, but also the rich life of Akmolinsk in the 20s, 30s of the 20th century. In our museum, we have very valuable items. That is, things he used himself, his own manuscripts, letters, as well as gold watch. The Swiss gold watch engraved with Seken Seyfulin's name was presented to him in 1936 on Alexander Pushkin's 100th anniversary in Moscow in token of respect and merit. Personal letters, favorite books, everything in this museum help to feel connection to great Kazakh writer Seken Seyfulin, for these walls still remember his presence. Ballet is not only an atmosphere of joy and fiesta, energy and emotions. It is a hard work at the limit of physical abilities, with a tough rehearsal process and strict discipline. Secrets of the ballet profession are going to be revealed by our guest Danyar Shmanov, who is the laureate of international contests and soloist of Abayan National Opera and Ballet Theatre. My amusing story began in summer holidays. I finished grade 5 in a regular school, and my aunt Maria Ilyasova, who was honored artist of Kazakhstan, and my second aunt wanted me to go to choreographic school, because when they had studied in Moscow, they took a great interest in this art. I had what it took for the ballet because I had gone in for martial arts for a long time, namely Taekwondo. So I had a good flexibility and I was trained well, which was all needed for the ballet. At that time there were about 400 applicants, but only 60 children could be enrolled, and I managed to enter that school. The first 6 months I was in a kind of knockout. My parents, particularly my father, taught me not to walk in my underwear in front of women. But there my teacher was a woman, my accompanist was a woman, well, all teachers were women, and before you could go into the room, you needed to wait in the corridor for 15 minutes, where you stood in rehearsal shorts while many girls were passing by. I felt uncomfortable and dragged my shirt lower and lower. In 2007, Danyar successfully graduated from Seleznov Choreographic School and joined the many ballet team of the country to begin performing solo parts almost immediately. Potential to become a soloist of the theater might be seen at school. You need to be a man of settled character. If you dance well, but you are weak, it is very difficult to be on top. Many misunderstand the idea of solo performance, believing that the soloist is an individual dancer. While before you can become a soloist, you should first dance in a corps de ballet. If you have been dancing in corps de ballet for a while, you start to understand everything, whether musicality or acting. From the first year of my work in the theater, I already alternated dancing. I danced 1 week in the corps de ballet, and the next day I did a minor solo part. I have started with this because performing big solo parts in the age of 18 is very difficult. In 2013, Danyar Shmanov was invited as a soloist in famous New Jersey ballet troupe. American people like shows, so the more you do pirouettes and ballet tricks, the more they admire the performance. And here we have a different situation. Since our ballet school has been developing for a very long time, we turn to be aesthetes of this art. Our ballet is about beautiful arm movements, beautiful eyes and amazing flexibility, because our art is closer to the Russian ballet. An American ballet is all about speed. You may have performances which are just crazy. I danced one where we had 2 pianos playing simultaneously, and we also had the percussions playing on the 2 sides, and it was counter-tempo, that is, one plays slow, the other plays fast. And you cannot hear music, and you just count and dance while counting. Before you go on stage, your level of adrenaline is stratospheric. At the age of 20, I danced the part of Spartacus. Me and my teacher rehearsed for 2 months without a break. The piece had a scene of rebellion, when the main character raised his slaves to revolt, and the scene with Adagio, that is with a lover. So it was approximately 15-17 minutes of dancing without any break. And when we went backstage after the first act, I was in kind of knockdown, because I had swallowed a lot of oxygen, but I could not exhale it completely. I literally had the air stuck inside of me, so I could barely breathe. My colleagues who worked with me almost started to do artificial respiration to help me. It proves that even if you are 100% ready, your emotions plus acting add another 50% to it, and you work all 150% on stage, which is sometimes very hard. Our profession is not for everyone. If you are ready to devote maximum you have to this profession, you will get maximum of it. As for me, ballet is probably my guardian angel. If you get a chance to go on a big stage and dance some part in the corps de ballet or any solo part, you will not be able to leave the stage anymore, because the audience is like a drug, and the greatest gratitude in your life is applause of the audience.
Fashion with the Made in Kazakhstan label. The leading and aspiring Kazakh fashion industry designers. Fashion Week reviews, the latest trends, and pointers from the stylists. All your news from the world of fashion and beauty on Fashion Guide.
Interior designer profession has become fashionable in Kazakhstan. Increasingly, their services are required in the case of decorating apartments and houses. The task of such a specialist is to make space not only functional, but also corresponding to the latest trends. The fact is that trends on furniture, the color of walls, and curtains change as often as they do with clothes. There are new trends all the time. I travel to exhibitions very often, developing all the time. Because the designer profession is a profession where you have to develop every day, you must run faster than your customers. Now people ride, travel, and look very often. Asil has been engaged in space design for several years, from beauty salons to cafes. Recently, the orders come from apartment owners increasingly. It became fashionable to invite interior designers into the home. In the process of working with private clients, Baimakan realized that it is not enough to be aware of trends in her profession. You must also be a good psychologist. There is a whole science of design psychology. This is what interior begins with. You are working with this. You are constantly in touch with the customer. You are entering their family. You become a member of the family within 6 to 8 months, or even a year or two. Therefore, it is necessary to build relationships first. Even when I start interior, I always say, we will spend a very long time with you, and I will ask you about everything: where you live, how you invite guests, how you arrange, where your grandmother is. Everything, if guests come to you or not. Someone chooses the latest trends, someone style and comfort. Therefore, in interior design there are always several options for design to choose from. For example, minimalism, classical style, and oriental motifs are relevant this year. The last exhibition in Milan was aimed at contemporary style. Now the audience departs from classics and modern, as comfort, functionality, and simplicity prevail more in interior. Earlier, our Kazakhstani people loved classics very much. It was such a general trend. Then more and more they began to switch to modern style. I already traced the trend that out of 10 who request, 8 will be asking to organize their space in the modern style. Many people are eager for American classics. This is large style furniture. For example, large sofas, large cushions, soft and comfortable furniture. The loft style, which is now very popular in the US and Europe, did not take flight in Kazakhstan. On the contrary, the presence of industrial elements, unfinished brick walls, exposed beams and pipes, cement floors. You will see this in coffee houses, but not in houses. For living spaces, they choose the loft style in its milder appearance. Now it is very fashionable to use everything natural in design. Namely, you can also use concrete. This tree, that is, it is natural materials that breathe. If earlier when the order was made, the first question was, what walls should be done? And people immediately said, we go to wallpaper store to match wallpaper with the fabrics. Now people are closer to paints. This is a wooden panel. That is, everybody are closer to loft and modern. Color also matters. Annually, experts make the forecast on tendencies of color decorations for interiors and declare fashionable shades of the nearest years. This affects largely on what scale the living rooms and bedrooms, kitchens and children's rooms will be decorated. If the hydrangea color prevailed last year, it is a gently pink color. Then this year we have fashionable colors. This is the color of greenery, the soft blue color shades and the color of Niagara. These are yellow-green shades. So the fashionable living space of 2017 is positive colors, maximum free space, and naturalness. quite a multi-purpose trend, which will catch fancy to many people.
Это, во-первых, дизайн, построенный на контрасте цветов, но в то же время легкости и
At first, it is the design constructed on color contrast, but at the same time, lightness and functionality. The second is correct and smart lighting use. The third is smart zoning, division of zone. That is space division. And the fourth is natural materials used.
Это использование натуральных материалов.
The task of interior designer is to create any space wisely using the knowledge of the latest trends. A sense of style and creativity are the necessary qualities of such a specialist, as well as spatial intelligence, intuition, and ability to foresee the outcome. Ballet and fashion have been cooperating for a long time. This friendship began at the beginning of the last century, when Coco Chanel created costumes for the productions of Blue Express and Apollo Musagetes. Her case was continued by Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Cardin, inspired by Maya Plisetskaya. In the 21st century, this trend has been further developed. Vivienne Westwood sewed costumes for English National Ballet and Vienna State Ballet. In 2013, the artists of the Paris National Opera were clothed in costumes by Riccardo Tisci. Most times, the dancers of New York City Ballet come on stage in designer costumes. Valentino Garavani creates clothes for them. In Astana Opera, Czech Room, the costumes are stored, which Yves Saint Laurent had related to. For Notre-Dame de Paris Ballet, the outfits were sewed according to his sketches. In 1965, the couturier appeared as a costume designer for the production of Roland Petit at Paris Opera. Then the fashion designer shocked the French beau monde, dressing Esmeralda in a mini, and Quasimodo went on stage without a disfiguring costume and grease paint. He danced his humpback. The ballet was repeatedly represented to audiences around the world. Now the production was transferred to Astana Opera without any changes. The costume designer was invited from France. We were given the costume coordinator of this theater production just for the costumes. It was Philippe Binot. This is the main costume designer for l'Opéra Theater in Paris. And together with him, we studied these costumes and sketches all over again and reconstructed them. Some of the costumes are absent already, and we reconstructed the whole image according to photographs. Asil Dosmoratova, Philippe Binot's assistant, traveled to France to purchase fabrics intentionally. This was one of the most difficult processes. At proper time, Yves Saint Laurent had chosen rich shades of materials, which were not meant to shine in any way. Factories that paint fabrics could not recreate this color, so we addressed them to Lyon, where these fabrics were created. Many performances in Paris were addressed to the factories of Lyon because there is a huge number of fabric manufacturers, and some of them worked at that time and created for these productions. And we addressed to them, and they reconstructed the same color, the same fabric structure. Behind the seeming lightness of costumes, in fact, a huge amount of work is hiding. Even Esmeralda's short dress required careful calculations. In theater's sewing shop, they remember with a smile the fabrication of the courtesan's attires. Thanks to various technical tricks in these dresses, slender ballerinas turn into small, plump women. There were no raincoats and bouffant skirts. However, the gravity was that all costumes had to keep up a shape, so we created them out of wool. We had the characters, the judges. They have very heavy costumes. They were created of 4 to 6 meters of woolen fabric. Also the headwear. The feature was in headwear, as they were increased by 2 to 3 times in size. They were heavy, of course. At Notre-Dame de Paris ballet collaborations of Astana Opera with famous artists, it did not end. Recently, Franca Squarcapino often appeared in theaters. The Italian won international recognition thanks to her work in drama and music theaters, as well as in cinema. In 1990, Franca received her Oscar for the picture Cyrano de Bergerac. Squarcapino has already created costumes in 8 productions for the Astana Opera. The Fountain of Bakhchisarai became the 4th work of the artist for the theater. She is #1 worldwide and approaches to each production very carefully, studying the period, the style of costumes. The Fountain of Bakhchisarai is closer to the east, and all costumes and colors were close to Oriental costumes. This is a ballet, that is why the fabrics were chosen lighter, silk, chiffon, in order to make them look very airily on stage. Today, the Fountain of Bakhchisarai is a production with bright and stylish costumes. The interlacing of history and modern trends turned out to be harmonious, and artists feel comfortable performing the most complex pas in such outfits. The cooperation of fashion and art always takes place bilaterally. Working on costumes for ballet, designers draw inspiration from dance for their collections. So, once ballet flats appeared in wardrobes of all women of fashion in the world, this feminine and comfortable footwear is a direct derivative of points. Feathers, pastel colors, translucent skirts, body. In recent years, ballet does not go out of style. Fine arts meets with fashion, and together they create something truly inspiring. Modern trends are textile paints and drawings on clothes. The brightest trend of the season is portraits on clothes and accessories. In Kazakhstan, the trend is planned by artist Aidana Minaydarova. I began to deal with painting recently, literally more than half a year ago, already seriously. Initially, I was engaged in clothes painting, like all artists. I was engaged in jackets, only then the other things, sweatshirts, shirts. It all started with surreal pictures. Then there were experiments with pop art. Finally, the artist tried herself in national style. The image of a girl in traditional dress brought a special flavor to Aidana's line. All illustrations, designers began by herself. Basically, it's from my past. The heroes are taken from my past. Mostly I portray people, those people who I am interested in. For example, Einstein, he is still interesting to me. On the one hand, it's a recognizable personality and a recognizable photo that I've portrayed. And on the other hand, this is what attracts me in a scientific technology, even a kind of science fiction. What I'm passionate about is what I show exactly in my works. In addition to the theory of relativity, the designer is inspired by Hollywood. Aidana writes portraits of legendary women and quotes them. On collars, you can also find lines from the songs of modern singers. For example, I drew Rihanna, took quotes from her songs. I think this is the most appropriate quote for her. Also, there are actors. Today, Aidana's collection has expanded. The designer added stylish collars to sweatshirts and jackets. At some point, I realized that you need to do something that would be multi-purpose. For example, a thing that can be combined in wardrobe with at least 5 different ensembles, which would look interesting in different versions, ranging from classics to sport chic. The designer pays special attention to the quality of fabrics. Best of all, paint is laid on dense cotton, different types of wool and smooth jersey. It is important that fabric is not porous. Otherwise, the paint will absorb too much, and the pattern will not lie exactly. Aidana draws usual textile paints on clothes. She says it's not difficult at all. The main thing is subsequent care of the product. It should be understood that technical loads are undesirable. You should not wash them often. It is desirable at a low temperature and with manual washing, or a delicate mode in a washing machine. Despite the fact that the brand is less than a year old, Aidana has established herself as a promising designer. The artist plans to create a men's collection and participate in fashion weeks. Fashion trends are numerous and varied. Each new season, they give way to other trends. However, there are directions that do not lose their positions from year to year. These include inscriptions on clothes. In the modern world, it is not necessary to make loud and public statements. T-shirts or sweaters will say better than any words. Trends first appeared from the streets. It's a street style. This is the passion of some people with a certain culture, certain interests and mood. It all comes from there, from the streets. Naturally, designers are inspired by something, by people, and they put some inscriptions. This can be a specific message. It all began in the 60s. There were T-shirts with portraits of famous personalities and various inscriptions. The youth expressed their mood, convictions, and passions precisely on clothes. In the 1970s, images of favorite rock bands began to be printed on it. Today, this trend has swept the whole world. Especially inscriptions in Cyrillic are popular. Sweatshirts and T-shirts, Gosha, Russian Renaissance are worn by Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, and Kylie Jenner. In Kazakhstan, Leonid Jerebtsov became the first designer working on this style. His inscriptions in the Kazakh language, Ozinche, Pusik Girl, are worn by everyday women in fashion in Kazakhstan.
Если вообще говорить, да, о нашей теме Озинче, да,
If we talk about our topic, ozinche, this was invented during vacations. A friend of mine called me and said that shoot is necessary, and it's clear that I do not like to dress my customers in standard clothing. And such a t-shirt was invented. If we take t-shirts, I am not Chinese, I am Kazakh. This idea went after scrolling Instagram. I saw our it girl and she was called a Chinese woman. I realized that this is a trend, that all our residents who go abroad for some reason are all compared to Chinese and Japanese women.
Наших жителей, которые выезжают за границу, почему-то всех сравнивают именно с китаянками и японками.
If the designer wants to make a direct announcement, he will simply print it on a t-shirt. The most popular slogans for today are political and feminist. If it is not too close to you, choose quotes from your favorite films and books, statements of famous people, as Bota Bakizan does. The designer often uses lines from works of Abai and Mukagali Makatayev in her works.
У меня самое первое слово, которое я использовала, было слово «ерекше».
The very first word that I used was yerekche. This translates as unusual, and I used it everywhere in different fonts and still do. I also used much more motivating phrases. For example, from my collection, what was popular and more sellable is Joly nan taima. The inscription is translated as "Don't leave the road." Other designers come up with puns, plays with language, and verbal provocations. Inscriptions on my tank top means Jalmaiz Kempir. Translated into Russian from Kazakh, it means old witch. That is, it was done for humor, for laughter. The girl put it on a tank top, meets passers-by, they smile. You can wear clothes with provocative inscriptions not only with jeans and leather jackets. You can wear with such things as feminine skirts, business trousers, and culottes. Given the fact that fashion has stepped far enough, and therefore these t-shirts can be combined with everything, evening skirts, shoes, sneakers, and with mended jeans. You can put on jackets, fur coats on top. I think that this is a multi-purpose clothing that can be worn in life and even worn on some kind of routes. And if earlier inscriptions were mainly used for t-shirts, now they can be seen on dresses, sweaters, and skirts. The main rule is to understand the true meaning of the words and phrases. The slogans should be in tune with one's personality and mood. Hot hits of the season can make you a real fashionista, but nevertheless, along with trend things, a set of capsule things should always be in the wardrobe. They are good for all occasions and help out at the right time. These include jeans, shirts, t-shirts, jackets. Recently, pleated skirts were added to the list. It is quite cross-functional. It is very well combined with many things, both with a classic shirt and blouse, and with a t-shirt, as with a leather jacket and with a bomber jacket. That is, the skirt is quite cross-functional, and it can even be called basic. If we talk about materials, then in the cold season, give preference to pleated skirts made of dense cotton, wool, and velour. They fit well on the figure and warm in bad weather. Many women of fashion in autumn-winter seasons often wear skirts of exceptionally dark colors. Black, gray, brown, green, blue. For the sake of varieties, include models with metallic effects in the wardrobe. The color of capsule things need not be black, white, gray, or beige. It can be any color from your palette. And in this case, we took a more interesting shade than black. The shade will go well with other things. Paired with this skirt, it is necessary to choose tailor-made blouses and jackets for business image creation. Girls who try to look bright and like extravagant things can add a belt over the jacket. An excellent addition to this elegant image will be the pumps. Sport chic and casual style lovers can combine a skirt with flat shoes. As an option, sneakers or loafers. We have this image for the day. Here we focused on convenience, so we used flat shoes, cotton t-shirts, and we took a leather jacket for a cool day. As part of the evening image, pleated skirts look great with black and white tops. An ideal pair of them will be products made of light flowing fabrics.
Третий образ у нас для вечернего выхода. Мы использовали ту же юбку плесе нашу, да.
We used our pleated skirt, added a top in linen style to it. We decorated with an ornament and added here such a glowing purse as a bright focus. In this image, you can go to the cinema, even on a date. The image is quite romantic.
И в кино, и даже на свидание. Образ довольно романтичный.
Recent seasons dictate the rule that androgyny is no longer in trend. Fashion houses have paid special attention to such feminine things as the pleated skirt. It firmly and permanently took a place in fashionistas' wardrobes and even went into the category of basic clothing.
Kazakhstan, the future is here.
Precision in every detail is the slogan of a European company with a 60-year history. Now, this is shared by the Kazakhstani manufacturer, working in the Eurasian market according to German standards. Initially, the German Baumer company came to the Kazakhstani market as an importer. A fast-growing economy needed many kinds of construction and engineering products, and German manufacturers offered high-quality and comprehensive approach to pipeline fittings supply. So far, more than 75% of the market capacity is mastered by foreign businessmen. Therefore, according to the strategy of import substitution, it was decided to build own production in Kazakhstan. As a result, in 2011, a memorandum on the opening of Baumer Armature in Kazakhstan was signed in the presence of Nursultan Nazarbayev and Angela Merkel, and it began its work in 2014. Now, this enterprise in Karaganda has an area of 8,500 square meters. Its capacity allows producing up to 10,000 units of products annually.
Наш завод был построен в свое время как раз-таки по программе ГПФИР. И в рамках государственной же программы.
Our factory was built through the State Program of Forced Industrial and Innovative Development. And under the state program, we refined our production line, the one needed here. The production line at the factory in Karaganda is a large one. Full and reduced port ball valves are from 15 millimeters to 1,400 millimeters. Pressure is up to 42 megapascal. That is, our product line includes practically all industry spheres: oil and gas, mining, heat supply, housing, and communal services. We are in demand in all market segments.
Сферы промышленности, то есть нефтегазовая, горно-рудная, теплоснабжение, жилищно-коммунальное хозяйство. То есть практически мы востребованы во всех сегментах рынка.
The Eurasian Economic Union formation later made Kazakhstan the most convenient state for the further sale of isolation valves to the nearby markets.
В первую очередь мы все-таки нацелены на страны таможенного.
First of all, we are aimed at the countries of the Customs Union and the European Economic Union, of course the CIS countries. Negotiations are now underway with southern neighbors, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Russia as well. We also think to enter the Azerbaijani market, as the oil and gas market is well developed there. So far, the products of the Kazakhstani Baumer factory are exported to the Russian market only, but this is the case when quality prevails over quantity.
Мы общаемся с предприятиями Газпрома, Роснефти, Лукойла, со многими предприятиями России.
We communicate with Gazprom, Rosneft, Lukoil, with many Russian enterprises. Basically, our exports are now focused on Russia, and I must say that our quality is demanded there. Today, we are the only Kazakhstani enterprise accredited at Gazprom's sites, and in 2016 already we supplied our products to them. We enter and work with many Russian design institutes in oil and heating supply sectors.
Проектными институтами России, нефтяными проектными институтами в области теплоснабжения.
By the way, when moving towards foreign markets, the Kazakhstani Baumer factory also feels the state support.
Очень хорошая программа у Казахинвеста по торговым миссиям Казахстана в других странах.
Kazakh Invest has a very good program on Kazakhstani trade missions in other countries. We have already visited these missions in Russia, Latvia, and it should be noted that there are developments on Russia, Moscow, Novosibirsk, and Omsk. This allows us to communicate at the level of these regions' administrative bodies, since we are no longer representing a private enterprise, but the state. Accordingly, this opens certain doors for us.
Не просто предприятие частное, мы представляем государство. Соответственно, это открывает нам определенные двери.
Now the Karaganda factory is loaded by about a third. This is a good indicator, given that the production has been operating for 3 years only. In 2014, Bomer Armaturin produced 1,000 ball valves, and according to the last year results, the indicators exceeded 5,000 units of production. The demand growth stability is explained with manufacturers' own strictest control requirements.